On Rockies, Kris Bryant returns to the lineup. Well, not tonight.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 20th day of May in the year 2022. I am your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Rockies fan extraordinaire Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. Proud to be your first listen and part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today on Locked On Rockies, there's really the big story. Spoiler alert, here's the breaking Rockies news. The Colorado Rockies will not play baseball tonight. The city is under snow, and Mother Nature decided to drop, I saw 25 degree temperature change in Denver. Snow. That ball game ain't happening. The Rockies announced that shortly before recording, or before I started recording here, I should say. So no Rockies baseball for the second night in a row, delaying the big Rockies news. Kris Bryant's return to the Colorado Rockies, and it really can't come at a more important time for the club. We also are going to celebrate the end of a dreaded streak, but I wanted it to kind of go and keep with a little bit of the theme to start. You know how people say, everyone says this. Everyone truly does say this. I've lived in multiple places. Everyone says the same thing. And it's, maybe I fall even into the same category. Everyone thinks that their state has the wackiest weather. Well, they wait the 5 minutes. No one understands what spring in Colorado is like. There's just no chance, unless you've lived in Colorado, you don't comprehend the fact that the 2 days in a row it was 80 degrees, and now there's no baseball being played because a giant winter storm rolled in, leaving a bunch of snow. 38 degrees currently in Denver. It is raining, according to this, a winter storm warning in effect. It's going to be rainy and cold tomorrow, too. I'm sure that's going to impact the games further. But if you have not experienced a spring in Colorado, I don't think you understand how crazy weather can get. If a day starts with the rainstorm and then the rainstorm moves on, as I heard many Ohioans say, wait 5 minutes and the weather will change. That's not the same. It's not the same. Denver is some of the wackiest weather in the country. It's some of the least predictable, and it's just one of those. That's my hot take. Nicholas in the chat says, "Go Rocks!" Heck yeah, go Rocks! That's what we're talking about here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. Now, enough of me talking about the weather. Let's talk about, Nick Tolan says Utah weather same way. That whole region, that no one's not, it's a ton of, you're getting snow in June. It's May 20th and Denver's getting hammered. That region, people don't understand what spring is like and how wacky it can be there, especially trying to play baseball there. But so no baseball tonight for the Rockies, but we got to talk Kris Bryant. Kris Bryant's return to the Colorado Rockies, delayed by a day, but it is a massive move for the Rockies here. They desperately need Kris Bryant back in this lineup. Why? Well, just because he is their superstar. He's someone that's going to not only bring the threat on offense, it's also going to add depth to the Rockies offense. The Rockies offense has shown they're able to score in some instances, and now Kris Bryant is just going to add to that. Ashton Godot sent down to the minors to make room for the return of Kris Bryant, and it can't be at a much more important time. There is a chance here for the Rockies to right the ship in terms of at least generating more runs. You hope that now when the Rockies head on the road with Kris Bryant, the runners in scoring position is going to be improved. You hope that this defense or this lineup gets a little bit more depth, a little more padding for some players that have been struggling, and not as much of a reliance on them to contribute as RBI generators. Kris Bryant hopefully is going to start putting the ball out of the yard. I don't like that Kris Bryant has to come back into a pretty darn cold games. I'm sorry. I'm seeing it in the live chat because we definitely got to talk about what's going on in the live chat. But with a back injury, with something like that, just that cold, stiff weather, the rotation, I really hope, the Rockies are playing it safe with Bryant to not further aggravate things as the weather's not cooperating. But, the big question now is, what do you do with the outfield? What does the outfield look like? Who plays what role? And it's time for Charlie Blackmon to start understanding that his role in this team is the DH. You cannot take Jonathan Daza out of the lineup, and he will play center field. And if you're down on Randall, if you don't think Randall is gonna be making the impacts that you think, as he's still pretty cold. I know he hits that big home run in the San Francisco series, but very much scuffling before that. You still like Grichuk in right field more defensively than you like Charlie Blackmon. Grichuk has clearly proven that he has been valuable on defense this year. And Charlie Blackmon, do we need to keep watching Charlie Blackmon chase balls in right? How many times do we have to have this conversation? Now that you've reached this point with the Rockies, when you look on paper and you say defensively the best options for the Rockies while also keeping the best offense is Charlie Blackmon as the DH. You have to make that call. You have to start going with it. And I hope, since Charlie Blackmon has been DHing a good amount already this season, that he's understanding that, and he's not going to never play right field again. But again, you're going up against a team with a 7-game lead in their division, the best team in the National League West. Put your team in the exact best chance to win. And the best chance for the Rockies to win is Grichuk and Daza playing in the outfield with Kris Bryant in left. Charlie Blackmon as the DH. If you really are down on Grichuk's offense, you just stick him at DH. What's the point there? He's more valuable playing right field while he's struggling on offense because he's better at defense than Charlie Blackmon. Charlie Blackmon's bat stays in the lineup. Charlie Blackmon, you can start putting him in different places. I mean, Charlie Blackmon could lead off still. It could still be Chuck into KB. You could start doing that. But if I would go Daza, Chuck, KB right there. You're hoping Daza is your speed, getting on base, and his ability to hit the ball right now, mixed with Charlie Blackmon's, hit for contact and being able to drive the ball pretty well, put the ball in play and have some success and still put the ball out of play. Then Kris Bryant can come in and does what he does. That's what I think the Rockies should do. Now, is that what the Rockies are going to do? I don't think so. I think you are going to see Grichuk be the DH. I think you're going to see Charlie Blackmon continue to play predominantly right field. You're going to see Jonathan Daza out there in center, and Sam Hilliard is not going to get a lot of looks. Sam Hilliard, I don't necessarily know what you do with Sam Hilliard. I mean, that it's going to be even tough. I mean, depth is important. It's good to have that for sure, as we've seen with injuries. But he is the one that is going to be impacted the most in terms of playing time with the return of Kris Bryant. Sam Hilliard will get some time at DH, I'm sure, every now and then, and they'll want him to try and go up there and do what he can do, which is hit the ball far, if he can hit it. But Sam Hilliard is in a very, very, very interesting spot. But I don't necessarily know what you're going to do there. Nick, you say the Rockies and too many outfielders. I feel like this is always a problem. Yeah, they carry a lot of depth. I mean, it's interesting how shallow they are at pitching depth, but yet we have enough outfielders. So I don't necessarily know what the future will hold for Sam Hilliard. I think he is in a tough spot for playing time and a tough spot to get a lot of reps, because Jonathan Daza has been incredible. I mean, Jonathan Daza and his performance this season, it can't be understated how big it has been for the Rockies to have Jonathan Daza performing at the rate that he is performing at. And his abilities on defense make him the clear choice right now for the center fielder for the Rockies. Jonathan Daza should be the starting center fielder for the Colorado Rockies. It's the only thing. It's the one that makes the most sense. Sam Hilliard is just not nearly as dynamic as a threat as Jonathan Daza right now. And right field, you have your two options that you're going with. Right field is going to be Grichuk and Blackmon, either one of them, and then the other one probably DHing. That's going to be the most likely thing. Sam Hilliard will get some time here and there, but we're hoping now that Kris Bryant comes back, that Kris Bryant is in the lineup for the rest of the year. And it's only off days that he takes off from here on out, because the Rockies, I'm really curious to see. I think the biggest impact we'll see with Kris Bryant being back is how this impacts the Rockies on the road. And an important road trip for Kris Bryant to be coming back as you're heading on the road to play two struggling teams where you can really make up some ground against the Nationals and the Pirates. But first, you do have to deal with the Mets. And let's talk a little bit more about that and what Kris Bryant's return means for that as well. But before we do that, I got to tell you about some of the great folks that make things happen around here, and that includes the Built Bars. Built Bar has so many delicious, unique flavors. Well, we were just talking about that limited flavor, the birthday cake. Well, guess what? How about this? I got one. This one, I like the birthday cake, but this limited flavor, this one is for me. It's the Built Bar Brownie Batter Puff. I love brownies. I love brownie batter. All the good stuff of a brownie batter experience. But guess what? You're also getting some protein in. The Built Bar team has a new creation, and this one's better than ever. The Brownie Batter Puff. It is a marshmallow protein-infused bar that's also tastes like brownie batter, and you can see all the macros for yourself at built.com. But it's 140 calories, 17 grams of protein, and only 7 grams of sugar. Brownie batter puffs are the perfect pick-me-up for any day. All Built Bar puffs are covered in 100% real chocolate. That means with Built, you can eat healthy and actually enjoy it. And they're made with collagen proteins, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides tons of health benefits. Go to Built.com, get your Brownie Batter Puffs now. And when you go get those Brownie Batter Puffs, you can save 15% when you use the code LOCK15 at Built.com. That's 15% off your order at Built.com when you use the promo code LOCK15. That's 15% off at Built.com when you use the promo code LOCK15. The Rockies take on the Mets tomorrow, actually. But before we dive into that, I wanted to see what the live chat is talking about. Nick Tullen says, KB is back, baby. And then Eric Harper, Jordan Pacheco back in the news. And he is. There is a nice little piece about him in both Purple Row and in Rock's Pile. Maybe I should try to reach out to him. That might be a good interview to try and do. That'll be fun. And a lot about stuff. He's coaching down there in Albuquerque, helping out with the minor league system of the club. And again, another example of the Rockies trying to highlight their stars. And I don't know, maybe putting the term Jordan Pacheco and star might be putting it a bit much. But for Rockies fans, especially like Nick Tullen, who freaking loved Pacheco on those Jim Tracy teams, the ultimate utility guy. Jordan Pacheco was the ultimate utility guy. I mean, any team would be happy to have a Jordan Pacheco on their team, and they should. And having him at that level, with that Rockies background, with that Coors Field background, with being a part of some successful teams as well with the Colorado Rockies, I love it. And I haven't dove into those articles, but I will read them pretty soon, because that is good. But yeah, so 2 pieces if you want to go learn more about Jordan Pacheco, catch up on some favorite Rockies. Eric Harper in the live chat says, give me snow every month of the year. No, hard pass. I like snow, but no, not all year. And you watched Game 4 of the Diamondback series in 2007 last night. Yeah, Rocktober is awesome. I hope if that's the only game you've watched from 2007, you got to go watch the tiebreaker. It's probably the greatest game in Rockies history. I don't think there's a better baseball game that you could say. If I was to tell people to watch one Colorado Rockies game, it would be Game 163 against the Padres. I think that is literally. I mean, the fever of the moment, the momentum to get there. I should have done this more in the offseason, but I will say this. Rocktober not being talked about as one of the great sports stories of all time is a crime. It deserves a documentary. It deserves to be talked about in high regards. It just sucks because it all came to a flat halt with being swept in the World Series. That's why no one talks about Rocktober on the grand scheme of things. But for the Rockies, with that team to get where they are at, and if they didn't have to wait so long, Rockies would have won the World Series in 2007. 6 games, I would have been there. I'd game 5 seats. Never get over it. Let's see. Adrian says, got to take advantage of the bad health on the Mets. And Eric, those are dangerous words to say around here. Don't think Matt touched home plate. Matt Holliday touched home plate. The umpire said it. He was called safe. No argument against it. He was safe. He touched home plate. But anyway, bad health for the Mets. Let's take a look at the Mets injured list right now. I mean, the big news, of course, for the Mets yesterday with Scherzer going down for 6 to 8 weeks. They also have Tyler McGill on the 15-day IL. They placed 3 people on the IL. Starling Marte will be active. He was listed on so he was on a bereavement. It looks like some personal issues, but it looks like Starling Marte will be back and playing in this weekend series, especially because here ESPN saying he will be activated from the bereavement list prior to Friday's game. So of course that bodes well for Marte to be back in the lineup on Saturday. Of course, no DeGrom still. James McCann also is out as well after he's on the 10-day IL. And Trevor May put on the IL here on May 15th. Man, they definitely have lost pitching this month. The Mets have, but it's something that also highlights the fact that the Mets have had the depth. They're still winning games. They're still in a good spot. But you're absolutely right, Adrian. That's a big boost for the Rockies there. The Mets coming into town without some of their big threats. However, in addition to the Mets being a good pitching staff, you got to watch out for that team that can really, really swing it. And they're 26-14 for a reason. This Mets team has a good look to it. I really think that the Mets probably, you're still confident in this Mets team until they pull a Mets, but they have done a lot of opposite of the quote unquote pulling a Mets this season. They've won ball games late. They've come back late. That is something the Rockies have to avoid too. The bullpen especially is going to need to come in and be ready to shut the door on this offense that has shown multiple times that it can come back into games late and take advantage of bad pitching. And especially in a place where the ball can fly, the cold weather might impact that on Saturday, especially for a little doubleheader action. What a cold, miserable doubleheader that'll be tomorrow. If you have tickets and you're going, God bless you. But that's a big thing too. I mean, we know what Pete Alonso can do at Coors Field. We saw him. I know it's the home run derby, but that's a comfortable batter's box for him to be in. I'm sure he's a huge threat. This Mets team has tons of threats down the entire roster here, especially when you're looking at just offensive potential. And again, they've been good. They took it to San Francisco. They have been good against the NL West this year so far, beating Arizona in 2 series, taking down San Francisco in a 4-game set, winning 3 of 4 against San Francisco. They haven't really struggled against anyone. The only series they lost was to the Mariners, and every single game of that was close. A 1-run ball game in all of those games for the Mets. This is not a team that you can take any chances with. This is going to be a real test for the Rockies. If the Rockies are able to pull out some form of a victory here, especially since it is at home, that'll be interesting, but it's going to be a tough task. I just think that this Mets team, because here's the deal. Coors Field is a place you go for someone like Lindor to break out. That's, he hasn't had as much of the season that he wanted to, I'm sure, but he's still, that's a place where you're waiting to bust out. They have a ton of power threats in Pete Alonso. Again, I mentioned Lindor. Escobar has been swinging it all right, not too much lately. A little bit of a slump, not necessarily too much of the power hitters, but this is a team that the Rockies can kind of benchmark themselves with outside of their division. It's kind of refreshing, I feel like, I don't know, refreshing is not the right word, but being able to see what the Rockies, how they match up against the teams outside the division, and it makes you kind of put into perspective sometimes about the struggles of playing in your certain division. For example, last year, the Rockies really, really good against the NL East. World Series champion comes from the NL East. I mean, does that mean anything? I don't necessarily know, but it does kind of help put more threads and more things to consider when you're breaking down and analyzing a team. So if the Rockies come out with 2 wins at this, albeit a home series, that's a good series win. That's probably the best series win for the Rockies if they win this since taking down Los Angeles at the beginning of the season. If they're able to do that and kind of stop a little bit of this momentum from the Mets, that's going to be a real nice boost for this Rockies team heading into a road trip that they desperately need to perform well in. The Mets currently have won 3 of their last 4 ball games. Again, they're coming off before heading into St. Louis. They were just coming off their first season series loss to the Mariners. But you look at these wins for the Mets here: 3 runs in the first game, 11 runs in their second win, and 7 in their third win. Again, this is a team that will score runs, and now the Rockies get the added benefit of not having to face a Scherzer. I don't know if it was going to match up, but it was a it's kind of early because, man, Scherzer is dominant, and the Rockies offense is easily can be overpowered by that. We are going to dive into the live chat here on this Friday. Again, thanks for rocking with me yesterday. My schedule was absolutely crazy. So thanks so much for tuning in again today. Kind of got a little all over the place there. I know that wasn't some groundbreaking analysis of the Mets, but again, my big takeaway, my big focus going into this series is the Rockies getting a nice outside the division benchmark to see how they can match up against a great team at home, taking advantage of a team that is missing some key pieces, and the Rockies getting their biggest piece back. And what we can see from Kris Bryant. What Kris Bryant means to the Rockies against the Mets is, again, more offensive threats. That's the biggest thing for the Rockies going up against this team that has strong pitching. I know it's kind of my final takeaway there with Kris Bryant. Live chat and wrap things up for today. But of course, we love to talk to our audience, so we are going to do that and dive in and get your questions live. You can subscribe to Locked On Rockies on YouTube, so you can be in the live chat just like Eric, Nick, and Adrian always are. They are the best. And we also had Nick and Nicholas today. So let's dive in here. Hold on before we do that. Our partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball scores, fights, and even next season's NFL futures. You can even get into the game with the live betting if you want to jump in, if a game's about to start, if you want to tune in on a playoff hockey game or something like that, and you want to get in on some live betting. Well, you can do so at BetOnline. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, from live betting, like I mentioned, to playoffs, esports even, and more. You can head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and actions. And there's a lot of action at BetOnline, folks. There's something, if you want to have some fun with a little bit of a bet on something, there's all sorts of prop bets and some fun stuff there, parlays, all that good stuff at BetOnline. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, here we go. If Jordan Pacheco was still playing, he'd be on the Giants for sure, Adrian Ortega says, and you absolutely nailed it. Eric, you asked Nick, but I'm going to dive in. What was the feeling when we traded Tulowitzki? Sucked, surprising, but it was probably coming at a point where the Rockies were going to move on and they were trying to do stuff. However, what the Rockies got back was disappointing. I wasn't a big fan of Jose Reyes. I've said that a couple of times on the show before, but it seemed like it was going to happen, and another situation where things just kind of fizzled out between the Rockies and a big time player. But Adrian says, off topic, but I saw somewhere that it was rumored Correa may opt out after this season. What do you think if we were able to sign him? Trade Tovar for pieces? Whew, man, getting Carlos Correa, I don't know. I don't know if the Rockies go that big again if he opts out. I don't know if the Rockies want to trade some of these prospects that have been, performing pretty well. Do you ship off prospects after you just brought some in a big trade from the Nolan deal? I just don't necessarily know. Here's what my kind of crazy thing. If the Rockies were to go big in terms of trying to land another big fish, this is what I think. Go get Judge. Go get Aaron Judge. Go get that dude to hit at Coors Field 82 games this season, 81 games this season. I think that, I think Correa is not going to, I don't know if Correa would necessarily come here. I don't know if Correa is even going to opt out. The Twins can still be fun. The Twins can be cool. But, man, if you're talking about another, like a dream, kind of one of those players you kind of would love to see in a Rockies uniform, I think Aaron Judge would be a really interesting Rocky. I mean, especially if you bolster up some of your lineup with that thump. I mean, that's a threat. The Rockies pitching might still not be as great and as dominant as we think. But if you roll out a lineup that's got Crone, Judge, and Bryant in it, I mean, that's nuts. And I'm sorry, if the Rockies are willing to go and spend big on Kris Bryant and like they did, you look at the Rockies, they have the TV deal. They have strong attendance. They have a bustling big city. I mean, Denver is growing and growing every day still. You kind of have to wonder if you're the Rockies, if you can't go to someone that's very offensive minded like Aaron Judge. And I mean, but ESPN's out here saying $300 million. It's behind one of their ESPN Plus things. I haven't read it yet, but if it, I don't know, I would, at least before I started doing anything too crazy, I would honestly check in to see what it would take to bring Aaron Judge to Coors Field. Cause that would be pretty awesome. I mean, again, Correa would be great too. I think they trust these prospects coming up, and I think they know they're going to be ready soon. And I think that's what they're going to go with and try and develop them with the middle infield. Whereas the outfield, you can just plop them in right field, or have them DH and sorry, Hilliard. Sorry. I don't, you say Daza, but I don't know. I think if you can have Daza covering in between Bryant and Aaron Judge there, and that would be pretty crazy. Eric, you ask, who's the biggest free agent star we ever signed? I would probably say it's Kris Bryant. I think that is to my knowledge, that is the biggest free agent name that the Rockies have signed in free agency. I can't think of, at least in their prime, you might say, we posted Jason Giambi was a Rocky. Depends on how much there are some other names, Justin Morneau, and all sorts of Roy Oswalt as well. There are plenty of players that have come to Colorado past their prime to finish up and boost some stats for sure. But to me, it would be Kris Bryant. Larry Walker, yeah, that's a good point, but Larry Walker and the Rockies seems to make more sense. Yeah, we're seeing some Larry Walker. So yeah, I would say outside it. Yeah, so there you go. Larry Walker in 95, probably the biggest free agent because he is the Hall of Famer. But in recent times, in a long, long time since Larry Walker, it has been Kris Bryant. Honestly, the biggest deal the Rockies made in terms of players was before that was getting Nolan on that deal. Man, that deal now. I mean, if Nolan was hitting free agency now, holy smokes, would Nolan Arenado be making a ton of money. Let's see. What's the update on Sens? Will he miss a start and be back soon? He's on the 15-day IL, I believe. So he's going to miss a couple of starts, I think for sure. And that is going to be tough. And that is something we didn't really talk about this week. And we haven't talked about a ton, but I'm sure we will follow up on it and monitor it as we will see the impacts after Sens' next start. Because I believe I haven't seen the if they've called anyone up specifically yet. When I looked at the projected rotation, it was just a shortened list. They just went shorter. Lambert's interesting. If I recall, Lambert is also injured at the moment. He is getting a rehab assignment. He did one on Tuesday. Okay, so earlier this week, Peter Lambert was pitching down at AAA Albuquerque. So yes, that is the most likely situation for the replacement. If he's healthy enough to get back, the Rockies will definitely turn to Peter Lambert there. Outside of that, you could see Ty Block and Julius Chacin making some spot starts in the interim. If the Rockies don't have Lambert, it will be Chacin or Block making a spot start to buy some time. Eric, how did the Nolan relationship fall apart? Well, you could there's a whole long list of things, and I've talked at length about this. So to spare everyone here, the short story is Nolan believed the team wasn't committing to what they told him, which was building a competitive team. The Rockies reflected that by spending $0 in free agency and really not doing anything to bolster that. And then Jeff Bridich didn't like the fact that Nolan called him out. Jeff Bridich doesn't like when he is perceived badly, especially by players. And they decided that they didn't think that he was going to, in their eyes, the opt-out that they gave him he was going to opt out and leave. So instead of losing Nolan there, they got the trade off that they did, which that's kind of my short summary. And that's clearly not everything, but that's kind of the short story. It's Nolan believed the team let him down in building a competitive team around them. Rockies believed that Nolan was going to leave, was becoming a problem around the team. And instead of going and backing up his player, Dick Monfort backed up his GM, who then silently left the organization 2 months after making the trade. Jeff Bridich sucks. Jeff Bridich, as a GM, I don't know Jeff Bridich as a person, and I'm not commenting on him as a person, but his actions as a GM, especially in his final 6 months, are a stain on the Colorado Rockies and the Rockies organization. And when Nolan Arenado wins the MVP this year, I hope he enjoys a nice big old glass of Coors Light or Coors Banquet, and he can just drink it down and feel super proud about that. I'm going to wrap things up there because before I get too heated, but in case you're wondering too, we still love number 28 around here. Anyways, shout outs to Trevor Story. Yes, absolutely, Eric. My last thing I will say, I filled in why I didn't do a show was I was filling in on Seattle Sports Radio yesterday, and we did a quick thing, and one of the things was our quick projection or quick takes on the Mariners Red Sox series. And I was like, Kirby's going to have a good start, but Trevor Story is going to hit multiple home runs in the series. Well, Trevor Story decides to hit 3 home runs in the first game. And anyone that didn't think Trevor Story was going to heat up and hit home runs and wanted to say that he was bad, he told you so. He's going to crush in the AL East. Now that he's hot, it's going to be, he's going to be awesome. Trevor Story rules. All these other Rockies rules. There's a reason why all these players are great and will continue to be great. And the Coors Field narrative is a bunch of hooey sometimes. But thank you all. Thank you, Nick, Eric, Adrian. Who else did we have in the live chat today? Rico, Nicholas, and all of you for tuning into the Locked On Rockies podcast. Find us on YouTube so you can ask your questions live here in the live chat. You can find me at Paul Holden 33 on Twitter. You can follow the show at LO Rockies on Twitter as well. Like I said, that YouTube subscription is a massive help for us. Same with all of you participating in the live chat. Now that you've made Locked On Rockies your first listen of the day, well, guess what, folks? There's so many more great podcasts on the Locked On Podcast Network for your second listen. Locked On Now will keep you up to date in the world of sports with all your favorite Locked On personalities from across the entire podcast network. Locked On MLB, hosted by the walking baseball encyclopedia, Sully. He will take you into baseball, all past, present, future, whatever you want to talk baseball. Sully has probably talked about it. And of course, stay up to date with your Colorado sports with the Locked On Broncos, Locked On Avalanche, and Locked On Nuggets podcasts. Folks, until next time, have a wonderful weekend. Another night off for the Rockies, but a cold baseball ahead. But hey, Kris Bryant is